Prime Minister Narendra Modi talked tough with the United States President Donald Trump on Wednesday and told him that there was no discussion on trade deal between India and US about mediation between India and Pakistan. प्रधानमंत्री ने बड़े स्पष्ट रूप से कहा, मध्यस्थता नहीं की गई है, नहीं की जाएगी और कभी नहीं की गई है. दो टूक शब्दों में प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने बड़ी साफ कर दी, there was never any scope of mediation on Kashmir. There will be no scope of mediation when it comes to Kashmir. And there was no mediation which happened on Kashmir in context of Operation Sindoor. I think the Prime Minister had put it very bluntly, and on this, I devote this On Point, the second part of On Point, which we are doing live from Dubai. Because tomorrow News 9 is going to hold its summit in Dubai on the issues which concerns both UAE and India. And the Prime Minister was very, very categorical. दो टूक शब्दों में हिंदी में जिसे कहते हैं. Now, without wasting any time, I'll pay out the bite of Vikram Misri a little later. Let me introduce my panel to you. I'm joined by Aditya Rajkol, Senior Executive Editor, News 9. I'm joined by Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former Indian diplomat. Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Umu Salma Bawa, Professor at School of International Studies. Thank you for joining me. And General Ranjan Kocha. I'll go to Ambassador Dayal first. So, the exit of Trump and the phone call which took place between the Prime Minister Modi and Trump saying, you must come to the United States of America. Prime Minister says that itinerary does not permit him. And then he reiterates, madhyastha nahi ki gai, nahi ki jayegi, nahi kabhi hui hai. Please decode it for us, Ambassador Dayal.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. Let me tell you that the context of the call became very important. Because we will all recall that President Trump had been claiming the credit for having mediated the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. We categorically denied his claims. We had pointed out that the Pakistani DGMO had approached our DGMO and asked for a ceasefire. And it is because of that that we made a decision to end the hostility. So it was nothing to do with President Trump trying to mediate. But President Trump has relentlessly made this claim and has said that he offered a trade deal to both sides, etc., and that is how the ceasefire became possible. That is why, during this phone call, which was 35 minutes long, our Prime Minister told Trump that following our recent conflict with Pakistan, talks on halting military action were held directly between India and Pakistan through the existing channels of both the armies and at the request of Pakistan. In other words, no mediation. Prime Minister Modi also said that at no time were issues such as the India-US trade deal or mediation by the US to broker peace between India and Pakistan were discussed. In other words, he made it clear to President Trump that India has never accepted mediation and will never do so. So in the context of the background, this is very important, and that is why all channels are discussing it, because it needs to be brought out very, very clearly.
Absolutely, sir. Indian story needs to be told. And I recall last time you said very categorically, the wars today are not about a fight on the ground. It's also about narrative. And that is very, very important. Aditya continues to be with me in Dubai. Aditya, decode the entire chain of event in context of the G7 summit and the readout which was handed over to the journalists.
Firstly, I'll tell you what Vikram Misri said is a masterclass in diplomacy, especially Indian diplomacy. Repeatedly during Operation Sindoor and post that, when the ceasefire really happened, it was being repeatedly reported, especially in the Western press, also in the Indian press, that India surrendered. India succumbed under pressure. But the reality of the matter is, because I was in touch with some of the very crucial players who were speaking to J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio at that time, and not a single time was trade discussed. Not a single time did even US mention trade in the negotiations. But you have seen Donald Trump at least come 12 times and speak about this. But now, at the G7, we've had, a landmark achievement. There are two crucial achievements that have happened. One is the normalization of the ties that have happened between India and Canada. This was being speculated for the last few weeks that when the government changes, there would be, of course, stability that will at least begin somewhere. Mark Carney and Prime Minister Modi have decided that, the High Commissioners will be appointed, which is a huge, huge development. You would remember that post the 2023 G20 summit in Bharat Mandapam, what happened with, Justin Trudeau, and Justin Trudeau actually pushed the India-Canada ties to a new low.
To the brink.
Absolutely. So I think Mark Carney has a lot of damage control to do. He has a lot of, stability to bring and a lot of trust factor to be rebuilt in this relationship. And that will only happen, and I'll say very point blank, when there is action against Khalistani terrorism and gangsters who are operating on the Canadian soil. On the other hand, Vikram Misri spoke about this relationship and the kind of deals that are coming about between India and Canada. But then came the second statement on this Operation Sindoor and Trump.
I think Mark Carney has to do a little more. I personally feel, because when the Prime Minister was there was a huge Khalistani rally that was organized. Yes. I mean, I think a little courtesy would have should have come into play, and that courtesy should have been that that permission shouldn't have been given.
Just one point, Kartikeya. Just recently has been the 40th anniversary of the Kanishka bombing that happened, in which majority of the Canadian nationals died. Have they got justice? What kind of a message is Canada sending out to the people, to the terrorists, to the radical elements, that you do Kanishka, you do terror acts on our soil, you kill our nationals, and you will be emboldened. There will be no justice.
I'll ask this question to Ambassador Dayal, because I was reading Mr. Bisaria's book, Anger Management, and this was in context of the 1971 war and the Canadian intervention, making India aghast, instead of criticizing Yahya Khan and the Pakistan in context of what were they doing in the East Pakistan. Then the Canadians were saying that India should take care of the refugees, and they very mildly criticized Pakistan. So I think there is a problem with the liberal politics and the liberal dispensation in Canada, because they have double standards. Since you mentioned Vikram Misri, let me play out the bite of Vikram Misri.
Well, the Liberal Party.
राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप के आग्रह पर आज दोनों लीडर्स की फोन पर बात हुई। बातचीत लगभग 35 मिनट चली। 22 अप्रैल को पहलगाम आतंकी हमले के बाद राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने फोन पर प्रधानमंत्री मोदी को शोक संवेदना प्रकट की थी और आतंक के खिलाफ समर्थन व्यक्त किया था। उसके बाद दोनों लीडर्स की ये पहली बातचीत थी। इसलिए प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप से ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के बारे में विस्तार से बात की। प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप को स्पष्ट रूप से कहा कि 22 अप्रैल के बाद भारत ने आतंकवाद के खिलाफ कार्रवाई करने का अपना दृढ़ संकल्प पूरी दुनिया को बता दिया था। प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप को स्पष्ट रूप से कहा कि इस पूरे घटनाक्रम के दौरान कभी भी किसी भी स्तर पर भारत अमेरिका ट्रेड डील या अमेरिका द्वारा भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच मध्यस्थता जैसे विषयों पर बात नहीं हुई थी।
Dr. Baba, your comments on the developments that have taken place on the Madhyasthata issue?
So, good evening. I think it's important to state over here in terms of the conversation between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, that India has very clearly said that this issue between India and Pakistan is a bilateral issue. It was a bilateral issue, it is a bilateral issue, and continues to remain a bilateral issue. I think that is the first important message which has gone out globally. Second, it is a strong statement which also says that in India there is collective political understanding about this, and there is no question of dividing the country on this particular issue. That's a very, very strong message. And third, I think, is to put the record straight. If you don't put the record straight, a new narrative will be formed, a narrative in which the role of India to guide its own destiny, to decide how the issue with the neighbor Pakistan is going to be managed. That is a script which has to be written in New Delhi. It cannot be written anywhere else. And I think that has come very clearly today in the Prime Minister's conversation with President Trump, also emphasizing that none of this should in any way derail or disrupt the relationship with the United States. And I said the plus point of that is that what we gather is that President Trump invited Prime Minister Modi on his return from Canada to come by Washington, which did not take place because Prime Minister already had a detailed plan. He's visiting Croatia as we speak. But on the other hand, I think Prime Minister's invitation to President Trump has been accepted. So I think that clearly shows that there is a very different nature of relationship. The speculation which was being made of, and the political point scoring which was happened, who said what, did India give in, did Pakistan get up? And I think all of those doubts have been cleared and put to rest. The strong message is what happens between India and Pakistan is bilateral, period.
General Kocha, your comments, sir.
Thank you, Karthikeyan. We just heard the two speakers. This clarification was very much required because there was much speculation in the media, and especially the opposition was harping on this issue quite a lot. I think all these critics have been silenced now. And it's extremely important that our Prime Minister has brought this statement on a telephonic conversation with Trump. And it's been made very, very clear in no uncertain terms that Kashmir is a bilateral issue. It will be resolved between India and Pakistan. And we have been maintaining this policy on Kashmir since a very, very long time. So there is no change in policy. So the nation has been conveyed this very strong message from the Prime Minister. And this message has also gone not only to the United States, it's gone to the entire world, and especially to Pakistan, where this narrative building from Pakistan was coming up that America is going to be roped into this mediation thing. Second most important thing, as far as the military part is concerned, about the ceasefire and all those things, I'm glad this doubt has been laid to rest now. Whenever a ceasefire has to take place, the first official channel is the DGMO channel. And Pakistan was talking, or it sought time from our DGMO, and if you remember, it was 9:30 in the morning, and our DGMO said that it won't be possible to attend to that time, and then it was shifted to 3:30 in the afternoon. So it is very, very clear that the ceasefire was initiated at the behest of Pakistan, and India accepted it. And thereafter the ceasefire took place. There was no question of a mediation from either Trump or the United States. It is made very, very clear in this statement of the Prime Minister Modi now.
Sir, I think the bottom line is, Prime Minister in very straight and blunt way, Hindi में वो बढ़िया शब्द है, दो टूक तरीके से जो बात की, there has been no mediation, there will be no mediation, and there was no mediation. I think it was very much required, and to be bluntly told, because Donald Trump can carry his domestic politics elsewhere. I don't think India is the place. And I thank all of you for joining me in this live Dubai edition of On Point. Thank you, Aditya, for being with me on both the shows. And that's all on Point tonight. I'll join you at the same time tomorrow. Thank you and good night.
This is the drive of your dreams. Introducing the all-new Skoda Kailak. Own your dream.
Skoda.
सर पेन रिलीफ के लिए
ये देखो, ये काफी है।
2 हफ्ते का